there's this really well-documented psychological condition, and it basically only affects first-time visitors to the French capital.
Right, yeah. It's actually a real thing.
It is.
Yep.
Like, it's so common that foreign embassies, they've actually had to set up these 24-hour hotlines for their citizens who are experiencing it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's called Paris syndrome. And it's basically a state of just like severe culture shock and cognitive dissonance.
It makes total sense when you think about it.
Exactly, because, your expectation of Paris is so cinematic. You imagine just like stepping off the plane and instantly materializing on the banks of the Seine at twilight.
Right, with the accordion music playing in the background.
Yes, a perfectly crisp baguette under your arm, just existing in this seamless, romanticized vacuum.
Right.
But then you arrive, and the reality of this massive, dense, relentlessly kinetic, 10 million person metropolitan area just hits you like a truck.
It really does. And I mean, the contrast is so jarring because the global marketing of Paris, it completely erases all the friction of urban logistics.
Totally.
It presents the aesthetic, without the infrastructure. But Paris isn't just a postcard. It's this complex living machine.
Yeah.
And when you, as a traveler, arrive without any understanding of how that machine actually operates, that cinematic fantasy, it deteriorates really fast.
Almost instantly.
Yeah, it just turns into this maze of exhausting lines, subterranean confusion, and just sheer physical fatigue.
And that friction is exactly what we're dismantling today on this deep dive. We're taking you on a completely different kind of journey.
Absolutely.
Like, this isn't going to be a list of which statues to look at. This is a masterclass in the structural ground-level mechanics of navigating Paris.
The real stuff.
The real stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to decode the transit networks that look terrifying on paper and bypass those architectural bottlenecks that just trap millions of tourists every summer.
Oh, the queues. We're going to skip those.
Yeah, and we're going to map out the actual historical and cultural logic of the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Because, honestly, you cannot actually engage with the art or the history or the food if you're just depleted from fighting the city's infrastructure all day.
No, you really can't. It's all about shifting your posture, moving from being this passive visitor who's just hoping things work out to becoming an active navigator who actually understands the urban flow.
Right.
Because when you understand why the streets are shaped the way they are, or like how the commuter rails were specifically engineered to bypass surface traffic, that's when you actually unlock the city.
So let's start at the very moment that cinematic illusion usually shatters.
Okay, let's do it.
You've just landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport, CDG. It's early afternoon. The jet lag is hitting you heavy.
Oh, that heavy, groggy feeling.
Yeah, and you're just standing in the middle of Terminal 2, which is this massive, sweeping expanse of glass and concrete.
It's huge.
And you need to get into the city center. A private taxi can cost an absolute fortune, and sitting in unpredictable surface traffic on the A1 highway is literally the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, you really want to avoid that highway. So this is where you need to engage with the RERB.
The RERB.
Right. It stands for Réseau Express Régional. It's basically the heavy commuter rail system. So inside the terminal, your only goal is to look up and follow the overhead signs that say Paris par train.
Paris by train. Got it.
Exactly. The architecture of CDG is incredibly vast, but these specific signs, they pull you centrally. They guide you to the subterranean concourse located right between terminals 2D and 2F and 2C and 2E.
Now, this is a major point of friction for international travelers, right?
Yeah.
The ticketing.
Oh, it's a huge trap.
Because I've seen so many people just walk right past the ticketing banks, head straight down the escalators to the platforms, and then they just hit an absolute brick wall at the turnstile.
Every single day.
Right. And the instinct for a lot of people, especially if they've traveled to other European cities, is to just, like, buy a standard, cheap inner-city metro ticket from a machine and assume it covers the airport.
Yeah, and that is a critical misunderstanding of the Parisian transit zoning system.
Okay, break that down for us.
So Paris proper, the 20 arrondissement is actually incredibly compact. It's strictly defined by the Boulevard Périphérique, which is the ring road around the city.
Right, the periphery.
Yeah, and everything outside of that ring, including CDG Airport, is considered the suburbs, or the Île-de-France region.
Okay.
So that standard cheap metro ticket, it only works inside the ring. To breach the city limits from the airport, you have to purchase a specific regional ticket, the Billet Île-de-France.
And how much is that usually?
It's around €8.40 right now, and you have to have it because the turnstiles at the RER platform have magnetic readers that are calibrated specifically to reject anything else.
Okay, so you secure the 8.40 regional ticket, you pass the turnstiles, and you descend to the platforms. And this is where the anxiety usually spikes for people.
Because of the destination names on the boards.
Exactly. Because the electronic boards above the tracks, they don't say Paris. They say Robinson or Soremy-les-Chevreuse.
Right.
And if I'm a jet-lagged traveler and I see a train pulling in destined for some, like, rural-sounding town I've never even heard of, my immediate instinct is to step back from the edge and just wait for a train that clearly says Paris.
Which, honestly, is a completely rational fear. But it ignores the fundamental engineering philosophy of the RER system, which they developed back in the 1960s.
How so?
Well, unlike traditional railway networks in cities like London or New York, where, trains come from the outskirts and then they terminate at a massive dead-end central station.
Like Grand Central.
Exactly, like Grand Central or Victoria Station.
Mm-hmm.
But the Parisian RER was designed to plunge completely through the subterranean bedrock of the city center. Yeah. So both the Robinson and Soremy-les-Chevreuse lines, they originate in the northern suburbs near the airport, and then they slice directly through the geographical heart of Paris before branching out again into the deep southern suburbs.
So it's a continuous artery. The train doesn't stop in Paris. Paris is just like the middle of its journey.
Precisely.
That completely changes the navigational logic. Those suburban destination names aren't warnings to stay away. They're the exact chariots you need to ride right into the center of the city.
That's exactly right. And your primary target on this subterranean descent is Châtelet-le-Haut.
Châtelet-le-Haut.
Yeah.
That station is infamous.
It really is, and it's vital to understand the scale of it. Historically, the surface above it was the central wholesale food market, which Émile Zola famously called the belly of Paris.
Right.
But when they moved the market to the suburbs in the 1970s, they literally dug out the earth and created the largest underground transit hub in Europe.
It is a massive multi-level labyrinth.
Yeah.
But it's a beautifully functional one if you actually understand its purpose.
Right. Exactly. It's the main interchange spine.
So you arrive on the RER B, deep underground, and from there, you can laterally transfer to Metro Lines 1, 4, 7, and 14.
It connects to everything.
Yeah. So say your apartment is near the Ascension-Dubenton station in the Latin Quarter. You take the RER B from the airport, step off at Châtelet, walk across the concourse to Metro Line 7, and boom, you emerge right in your neighborhood.
You've entirely bypassed the surface gridlock.
Which is huge. You've accomplished the hardest logistical maneuver of the trip within, like, 45 minutes of grabbing your luggage.
It feels like a superpower when you do it right.
Yeah.
But this transition at Châtelet brings us to the actual capillary system of the city, the Paris Metro.
Right.
Because to operate within Paris on a daily basis, you really must master this specific underground network.
And I find the Paris Metro fascinating because it demands a very specific kind of spatial awareness. It's one of the densest systems in the world.
Oh, incredibly dense.
The original engineer, Fulgence Bienvenu, he designed it so that no Parisian would ever be more than 500 meters from a metro station.
Which is an amazing feat of engineering.
It is. But because it's so dense, the maps look like a bowl of brightly colored spaghetti. It's just lines everywhere.
It is visually overwhelming for a lot of people. However, the system actually relies on a very rigid three-part logical sequence.
Okay, what is it?
Before you even enter a station, you must answer 3 questions. Where am I? Where am I going? And do I need to transfer?
That seems simple enough.
It does, but the friction occurs because travelers try to figure this out while they are actively moving rather than establishing the route beforehand.
Ah, right. So let's apply that logic. Let's say you're standing in the Place de la Bastille and you want to see the Louvre.
Okay, good example.
So you answer the first 2 questions. I am at Bastille. I'm going to the Louvre.
Yeah.
At the Bastille station, you have access to line 1, which is color-coded yellow-orange on the map.
Right.
And the Louvre is also on line 1. So this is where people make a fatal assumption. They see the orange circle on the platform, they see a train pull up, and they just get on it.
And that right there is the color coding trap.
Yes.
The color only identifies the physical track. It does not dictate the direction. Every line runs in 2 opposing directions simultaneously.
Oh, of course.
But in the Paris Metro, the direction is never identified by compass points. You will never see a sign for northbound or westbound.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
So what do you look for?
The direction is exclusively named after the final terminal station at the very end of the line.
This is the crucial disconnect for a lot of people. So if I'm at Bastille and I want to go west to the Louvre, I have to trace line 1 all the way to its western edge on the map.
Exactly.
I look and see the final stop is La Défense. Therefore, I don't just follow the orange signs. I follow the orange signs specifically marked with the word La Défense.
You've got it.
Because if I get on the train heading towards Château de Vincennes, which is the eastern terminus, I am literally accelerating away from my destination.
The terminus is your true compass. Now, if you introduce a transfer, the logic remains exactly the same. You just apply it twice.
Okay, give me a transfer scenario.
Suppose you want to go from Bastille to the Eiffel Tower. That requires a transfer. You start on line 8, which is the light purple line.
Okay.
You look at the map and realize you need to head southwest. The terminus in that direction is Ballard. So you take the line 8 train toward Ballard, and you exit at the station La Motte-Piquet-Grenelle.
And from there, the journey isn't over. You're underground and you're looking for your next connection.
Right. So at La Motte-Piquet-Grenelle, you look for the signs for line 6, the light green line. You need to head back towards the river, so you find the terminus for that direction, which is Charles de Gaulle Étoile.
Got it.
You board that train and finally emerge at the Bir Hakeim stop, which is the closest station to the tower. It requires active reading of the environment, not just passive following of colors.
It sounds incredibly clinical when we talk through it, but
Yeah.
honestly, once you internalize that terminus equals direction rule, the anxiety just vanishes.
Completely. It becomes second nature.
But there is a physical component to this system that we absolutely must address. The ticketing hardware?
Oh.
Because we are in a digital age. But the Paris Metro still heavily relies on these tiny purple and white magnetic striped paper tickets.
They do.
And you cannot buy them one by one. I mean, the single worst way to spend your time in Paris is queuing at a machine every single time you want to ride.
Economically and temporally, the single ticket purchase is deeply inefficient. The standard protocol for a traveler is the Carnet.
The Carnet?
Yes. A Carnet translates to a book or a bundle of 10 individual tickets, and it's sold at a slight discount.
But buying the Carnet introduces you to a piece of Parisian technology that feels wildly anachronistic.
It really does.
Like if you go to a smaller metro station, you won't always find a sleek touchscreen interface. You find this heavy square machine with a metal roller bar situated beneath the screen.
It's very retro.
It feels like you're interfacing with like industrial machinery from the 1980s or playing an old arcade game.
It's a very tactile analog interface, and it operates on a very rigid selection tree. So you don't tap the screen, you roll and click.
Walk us through it.
You step up to the machine. You use the metal bar to scroll through the menu until the highlight bar rests on Carnet 10 tickets, plus Metro, Bus, Tramway 2E Clans tariff.
That is a mouthful.
It is. But that specific string of text confirms you are buying a 10-pack full-fare second class valid across the inner-city network.
And to select it, you don't push the screen right. You have to press the heavy physical button located next to the roller bar, the validation button.
Correct. The machine then asks for the quantity. 1 Carnet for 10 tickets, or 2 for 20. You roll, select, and validate. Then it'll ask if you require a receipt. Oui or non.
Always hit none. Keep the line moving behind you.
Please do. Finally, you insert your credit card, and the machine physically prints and drops 10 individual magnetic tickets into the metal tray at the bottom.
It's so satisfying.
It is. And the utility of the Carnet is unparalleled because it removes the friction of purchase from your daily movement. You just keep the stack in your pocket, and the transit network becomes an open door rather than a series of financial transactions.
Okay, so you've mastered the underground movement. You've got your pocket full of tickets. Now, how do we apply this systemic thinking to the surface?
That's the next step.
Because the same friction that plagues the metro completely plagues the cultural institutions. The monuments in Paris are just gravitational black holes for tourists.
Absolutely are.
Let's look at the Louvre. I mean, the history of this building is absurd. It was a medieval fortress, then it became a Renaissance palace, and now it's literally the largest art museum on Earth.
It's massive.
And when people approach it, they usually walk right into the most obvious architectural bottleneck ever designed.
You're talking about the glass pyramid in the central courtyard, the Cour Napoleon.
Yes, IMP designed that pyramid in the late 1980s, and it's gorgeous. It really is.
Stunning architecture.
But standing in the security line outside of it is an exercise in absolute misery. You are exposed to the elements blistering July sun or freezing November rain, just staring at an endless switchback of people.
And it is entirely unnecessary. The structural flaw of the pyramid entrance is its visibility. You have to remember, it was originally designed to handle roughly 4.5 million visitors a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the Louvre now frequently sees over 10 million.
That's more than double.
Exactly. The pyramid acts as a massive funnel for anyone just following the standard visual cues. But the Louvre, due to its history as a sprawling royal complex, is actually highly porous if you know where the alternative access points are located.
Right. And the first alternative is entirely subterranean. We like to call it the Metro hack.
The Metro hack. I love that.
So if you take Metro Line 1 to the Palais Royal Musée du Louvre station, the absolute worst thing you could do is walk up the stairs to the street level to look for the pyramid.
Yes, you must remain underground. When you step off the train, look for the directional signs on the platform, specifically on the platform servicing the La Défense direction.
A westbound one.
Right. You are searching for an exit, specifically marked Carrousel du Louvre.
The Carrousel du Louvre is so fascinating to me because it's technically a high-end underground shopping mall that's physically grafted onto the foundation of the museum.
It's a very strange juxtaposition.
It is. You walk through this subterranean corridor, you're walking past designer boutiques and Apple stores, and then suddenly you are standing directly underneath the famous inverted glass pyramid.
And you merge directly into the central ticketing hall. You still have to pass a security scan, obviously, but you are doing it in a climate-controlled environment, completely shielded from the weather.
It's huge in the summer.
Huge. And the queue is a fraction of the size because it filters out all that casual surface foot traffic.
But say you are already above ground. You're walking through the Tuileries garden, you've had a coffee, and you want to enter the museum without descending into the mall. There is a surface entrance that almost feels like you are trespassing because it's so quiet.
The Porte de Lion, the Lion's Gate.
It's incredible.
It really is. It is situated on the far western wing of the museum, running parallel to the Seine. Historically, this wing was part of the massive gallery connecting the Louvre to the now destroyed Tuileries Palace.
Okay.
Today, this entrance is heavily obscured by trees, and it completely lacks the monumental signage of the pyramid. Tour groups generally ignore it entirely because large buses cannot easily access it.
It is this tranquil, heavy wooden door flanked by bronze lions. You just walk in, and you are immediately deposited into the African, Asian, and Oceanian art wings, completely bypassing the chaos of the main hall.
It feels like a secret club.
It really does. Now, a critical piece of logistics here. We're talking about getting through the physical doors, which implies you already hold a ticket.
Yes, very important distinction.
The assumption in modern travel is that you just buy an e-ticket on your phone and hold up a QR code.
Which is a very dangerous assumption in the context of specific French bureaucratic systems.
Tell me about it.
While direct digital ticketing has definitely improved, many third-party vendors and even certain official portals still operate on a physical voucher system. If you purchase advance tickets online, you must read the fine print meticulously.
I cannot stress this enough. I've seen so many people get turned away. So many e-tickets for major Parisian exhibitions require you to physically retrieve a printed ticket from an external retail location before you go to the museum.
Yes. Usually this means going to a store called FNAC.
FNAC.
FNAC. It's a massive retail chain that sells books and electronics, but they also serve as the primary centralized ticket distributor for cultural events across France.
Right. So you might buy a ticket to the Louvre on a Tuesday, only to realize the confirmation email is merely a voucher.
Exactly. You must then navigate to an FNAC location, perhaps the massive one located inside the Châtelet-Les-Halles complex we discussed earlier. Present your credit card and ID, and they will print the physical barcoded ticket.
And if you arrive at the Porte de Lion with just the email voucher on your phone,
security will absolutely turn you away, and the advantage of the hidden entrance is entirely negated. You're back to square one.
It's heartbreaking to watch. The only way around this entirely is the physical Paris Museum Pass, which grants direct entry, but, that requires a significant upfront investment.
Right. It's all about understanding the friction points.
So moving from the Louvre, let's tackle the other massive gravitational pull in Paris, the Eiffel Tower.
The Eiffel Tower presents a unique logistical challenge because of its sheer verticality and the surrounding topography. The approach to the tower is just as crucial as the ascent.
Oh, completely. If you approach it from the flat Champ de Mars Park, it's impressive, sure. But you are slowly walking up to its ankles. You want the grand architectural reveal.
Of course you do.
Gustave Eiffel built this thing for the 1889 World's Fair to demonstrate the absolute supremacy of French structural engineering. It demands drama.
And to capture that intended drama, you must utilize the topography of the right bank.
How so?
You take Metro Line 6 and you exit at the Trocadéro station. The Trocadéro Plaza sits on a highly elevated hill directly across the Seine from the tower.
You walk out of the station, step onto this massive marble esplanade, the Palais de Chaillot, and boom, the entire tower is framed perfectly in front of you with the sprawling city directly behind it.
It is the definitive perspective.
It really is. From there, you descend the monumental staircases, cross the Pont d'Iéna Bridge, and you arrive at the base. And here, you face a significant choice regarding the ascent.
The tower operates on two primary systems of vertical movement: the elevators and the stairs.
Right.
The elevators are the default choice for the vast majority of the nearly 7 million annual visitors. Consequently, the queuing system for the elevators, both to ascend and, crucially, to descend, is intensely congested.
It's a nightmare.
If you rely on the elevators without securing a pre-booked timed entry ticket months in advance, you must dedicate at least 4 hours of your day solely to waiting.
That's half your day gone. But the stairs to the second floor are an entirely different experience. It's exactly 674 steps.
It is a serious physical exertion.
It's a workout.
Yeah.
But the psychological reward is immense.
It is, because the stairs force you to actually engage with the engineering.
Yeah.
When you are sealed inside the glass elevator cabin, you're insulated from the structure. But when you climb the stairs, you are climbing through the open iron lattice. You feel the wind, you hear the metal creak, you fully comprehend the radical nature of what Eiffel built.
It's visceral.
And practically, the queue for the stairs is often just a fraction of the wait for the elevators.
But let's say you reject both the queue and the physical exertion. There's a third option.
Ah, yes, the VIP option.
It requires a significant financial outlay, but it perfectly illustrates how understanding the hidden mechanics of a place can alter your experience. The VIP restaurant hack.
On the second floor of the tower sits the Jules Verne restaurant. It is a Michelin-starred establishment. And because it operates independently of the general tower admission, it possesses its own dedicated private elevator located in the south pillar.
So if you manage to secure a reservation, which, to be fair, requires booking online far in advance and holding it with an international credit card, you completely bypass the massive public security lines at the base.
Completely.
You just walk to a private podium, they verify your name, and you are ushered into a private lift that shoots you directly to the second floor. You are literally elevated above the friction of the crowds.
It is a profound example of how access in highly congested tourist zones is often stratified not just by money, but by the application of specific logistical knowledge.
Exactly. And speaking of understanding specific logistical knowledge to access high-value targets, let's look at the ultimate historical symbol of stratified access.
We're heading out of town.
We are leaving the city limits. We are heading to the Palace of Versailles. Louis XIV built Versailles specifically to escape the chaotic, uncontrollable friction of Paris. He moved the entire government out to this massive, isolated estate.
You really did.
And to get there today, we have to engage new piece of transit infrastructure, the RERC.
Right. We discussed the RER B earlier as the north-south artery. The RERC is a completely different beast. It snakes along the left bank of the Seine, mirroring the river's curve, before pushing westward toward Versailles.
Okay.
And the critical failure point for travelers heading to Versailles is not the train ride itself, but the ticketing interface prior to boarding.
We fall right back into the transit zone trap.
We do.
Because Versailles is located in Zone 4. Paris is Zone 1. If you try to use one of the standard Metro Carnet tickets we bought earlier, the turnstile in Paris might actually let you through to the RERC platform.
Which creates a terrible false sense of security.
Oh, it's the worst.
The trap springs when you arrive at Versailles. To exit the station at Versailles, you must process your ticket through the exit turnstiles. The machine will read the magnetic stripe, recognize it is only valid for Zone 1, and the doors will simply not open.
You are physically trapped.
You are physically trapped in the station, and the transit authorities actively patrol this specific choke point to levy substantial cash fines against tourists.
It's brutal. It's such a common mistake. So how do we correctly navigate the machine?
You have to return to those heavy analog ticket machines. You bypass the main screen options for local transit. You must specifically select the button that reads, Billets Région Île-de-France.
Billets Région Île-de-France. Okay.
This opens up the regional database.
And the interface here requires you to manually search, right? You're presented with an alphabet on the screen.
Yes. You select the letter V. This populates a massive list of regional stations starting with V. You must meticulously scroll through until you find the exact station. Versailles, Rive Gauche.
Yeah.
The distinction is vital because there are actually multiple stations in the town of Versailles, but Rive Gauche is the terminal specifically built to service the palace.
And the cost is dynamic based on where you start in Paris.
Right.
Like if you board at Cité Universitaire, it might be around 9.6 euros round trip. If you board further east at Jussieu, it's closer to 6.70 euros. The system calculates the exact distance.
It's very precise.
So you buy the ticket, you head down to the RER platform, and here you encounter the most confusing aspect of the Parisian commuter rail, the platform trap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because in the standard metro, one physical platform almost universally serves one line, traveling to one destination.
Right. Line 1 goes west, you get on.
Exactly. But the RER system utilizes shared track infrastructure. A single platform on the RER will service multiple different trains branching off to entirely different geographic destinations.
It completely breaks the mental model of a subway.
Yeah.
If you are standing on the RER platform and a train pulls up, you cannot just get on it.
No, absolutely not.
It might be heading to Versailles. Or it might be heading to a random suburb miles away in the wrong direction.
And the trains themselves often lack prominent digital signage on their exterior. The only way to know where a train is going is to obsessively check the electronic indicator boards suspended above the platform before the train arrives.
I remember these.
These boards list every possible station on the line. And next to each station name is a small light bulb.
It's such an old school system. You literally have to stand there, stare at the board, and make absolutely sure the little yellow light next to Versailles Rive Gauche is illuminated.
Yes.
Because if it's not lit, do not get on the train.
Do not get on. But once you successfully board the correct train, it is roughly a 45-minute journey. And when you finally arrive at the Versailles Rive Gauche station and legally exit the turnstiles, you face the final logistical hurdle.
The arrival environment.
Yes.
The moment you walk out of the station doors, you are hit with a wall of noise. There are people aggressively hawking shuttle bus rides, taxi services, and motorized carts, all promising to take you to the palace gates.
It's overwhelming.
And given the sheer scale of the Versailles estate, I mean, it's over 2,000 acres, the immediate assumption is that the palace must be miles away from the train station.
Which is an orchestrated illusion designed to exploit disorientation.
Total scam.
Louis XIV designed the entire town of Versailles to radiate outward from the palace gates. The train station was built into this existing, highly concentrated urban grid.
So what's the actual walk?
If you just ignore the hawkers, exit the station, and turn right, you walk roughly 100 meters to a traffic light. You turn left, and the massive gilded gates of the chateau are sitting right there at the end of the avenue. It is less than a 3-minute walk.
It's predatory, honestly. They're charging 10 euros to drive you 2 blocks.
It's crazy.
Now, once you reach those gates, survival at the palace requires a very specific mindset. First of all, the palace is closed entirely on Mondays, a fact that ruins countless itineraries.
Check the schedule, always.
Always. Weekends are a crushing sea of humanity. But the most grueling aspect is the security protocol.
Yes, because to enter the main palace, you must pass through the security checkpoint located in the primary stone courtyard, the Cour d'Honneur.
It's huge.
It is, and because it is a historic monument, no permanent sheltering structures can be built in the courtyard. The queue is entirely exposed to the elements.
You're standing on uneven cobblestones, surrounded by heat-reflecting stone walls with zero shade. If you go in August, it is a literal solar oven.
You have to prepare.
Heavy sunscreen and a large umbrella used either for torrential rain or as a parasol are non-negotiable survival tools.
Absolutely, because the scale of Versailles is meant to diminish the individual. It was an architecture of absolute power.
Yeah.
But moving back into Paris, we find the exact antithesis of that royal control, the topography of rebellion.
Yes. From the hyper-regulated, flat geometry of Versailles, we move to the organic, chaotic, steep elevation of Montmartre. Montmartre is the highest natural point in Paris. It's a massive hill, a butte of gypsum rock, located in the northern part of the city.
And for centuries, Montmartre was entirely outside the city limits of Paris. It was just a rural village of windmills and quarries. But Crucially, because it sat outside the wall of the Farmers General, which was the physical wall where the city collected taxes on goods entering Paris wine in Montmartre, was untaxed and incredibly cheap.
Which is the fundamental recipe for a bohemian explosion.
Oh, absolutely.
Cheap rent, cheap wine, and no city police. It became the epicenter for artists, writers, and radicals in the late 19th century. Renoir, Picasso, Toulouse-Lautrec, they all gravitated to this chaotic hillside.
And to experience this geography today, the standard approach is via the Abbas's metro station.
Abbas is right.
The station itself is incredibly deep, just burrowed into the bedrock of the hill. When you emerge, you are looking up the steep incline toward the brilliant white domes of the Sacré-Coeur Basilica, which dominates the skyline.
And immediately, you face a physical choice. You're at the bottom of the hill. Do you take the funicular, a mechanized, glass-enclosed cable car that glides up the steep incline, or do you take the stairs?
Well, the funicular operates as part of the standard transit network, so you can just swipe one of those Carnet tickets to use it.
Super convenient.
It is, but the stairs are the authentic physical interaction with the neighborhood.
I always advocate for the stairs. It grounds you in the sheer verticality that really defines the neighborhood. But the fascinating thing about Montmartre is the ideological conflict baked right into its architecture.
What do you mean?
Well, you climb all those stairs to reach Sacré-Coeur, which looks like this ancient, serene temple. But its history is violently political.
Oh, yes. Sacré-Coeur was not built simply as a place of worship. It was constructed as a conservative national penance following the Paris Commune of 1871.
The Commune.
Right. The working-class citizens of Montmartre violently rebelled against the French government, dragging cannons up the hill and declaring an independent commune.
And the response was brutal.
After the government crushed the rebellion with immense bloodshed, they built the imposing, brilliant white basilica at the very top of the hill, physically and ideologically looming over the radical neighborhood below.
It's literally a monument of control sitting on top of a neighborhood famous for chaos.
Yeah.
But the true spirit of Montmartre isn't found at the basilica. It's found in the descent back down the winding back streets.
So true.
If you head west from the top, you intersect with Rue Lepic.
Rue Lepic is an ancient, winding path that originally serviced the plaster quarries. Today, it is a dense sensory corridor of Parisian gastronomy. It completely defies the hyper-gentrified, sterile atmosphere that plagues many tourist districts.
It is so alive. You walk down Rue Lepic and the smell is intoxicating.
The cheese, the roasting meat.
Yes. You pass fromageries with hundreds of raw milk cheeses aging in the windows. You pass rotisseries where whole chickens are slowly spinning, dripping their fat onto massive pans of roasting potatoes below. It is the culinary density of a village packed into a single street.
And culturally, Rue Lepic represents a modern layer of Parisian mythology, too. It is the central artery for what we can call the Amélie Trail.
Amélie?
Yeah, referencing the globally successful 2001 film that heavily romanticized the neighborhood.
At number 15, Rue Lepic sits the Café des Deux Moulins. This is the physical cafe where the fictional Amélie worked.
It's still there.
The interior has barely changed. It is, of course, a major tourist draw, but walking in and sitting at the Zinc Bar grounds the cinematic fantasy in a physical location.
Definitely. And as you navigate the labyrinth of the hill, you encounter the tension between the historic and the cliché. Place du Tertre is the prime example.
Place du Tertre?
It is the historic square where the Surrealists and Impressionists actually lived and argued. But today, it is tightly packed with commercial artists painting repetitive caricatures and generic landscapes for tourists.
It's undeniably a tourist trap. But it's a trap with an undeniable kinetic energy, you know? You acknowledge it for what it is, and then you step away to find the subtle quirks the hill hides.
Like what?
Just a few streets over, in the quiet Place Marcel-Aimé, there's this incredible bronze statue of a man physically emerging from the solid stone wall.
Ah, yes. It is a tribute to the protagonist of Le Marais, a short story by the French writer Marcel Aimé, who lived nearby. It's a sudden injection of magical realism right into the streetscape.
And further down near the Abbas station, you find the Mur de Je t'aime, the Wall of Love.
That's a beautiful spot.
It's a massive installation of deep blue enameled lava tiles, inscribed with the phrase, I love you, in 300 different languages. It's a quiet, profound space hidden just off the main thoroughfare.
It's very peaceful. But finally, as the steep descent levels out, you hit the Boulevard de Clichy. And the atmosphere undergoes an instant, violent shift.
Oh, completely night and day.
The quaint, village-like silence is replaced by neon, multi-lane traffic, and the lingering grit of the historic red light district.
You are standing right in front of the Moulin Rouge, its massive red windmill slowly turning. You've journeyed from the conservative monument at the peak, down through the bohemian back streets, to the commercialized Carnet at the bottom.
It's a complete vertical cross-section of Parisian history.
It really is. Now, if we take the metro south, crossing from the northern edge deep into the heart of the right bank, we hit a neighborhood that survived a completely different kind of historical violence, the Marais.
To understand the Marais, you really must understand what happened to the rest of Paris.
Haussmannization?
Exactly. In the mid-19th century, Emperor Napoleon III ordered a massive, ruthless urban renewal project executed by Georges-Eugène Haussmann. Haussmannization involved demolishing the ancient, crowded, medieval, disease-ridden center of Paris and replacing it with the wide, straight, elegant, tree-lined boulevards we associate with Paris today.
Haussmann essentially bulldozed history to create a modern, controllable, breathable city. The wide boulevards were beautiful, sure, but they were also militarily strategic. They were much harder for rebellious citizens to barricade and much easier for the army to move artillery through.
That was a huge part of the plan.
But Haussmann barely touched the Marais. Why?
Well, the Marais, which literally translates to the swamp, was historically a low-lying, less desirable area. While aristocrats built magnificent mansions, hotels particuliers there in the 17th century, by the time Haussmann arrived, the elite had abandoned it for Versailles or the newer Western district.
So it was just left behind.
Right. The Marais had become a dense, impoverished, working-class slum. Because it lacked strategic or economic priority, it was largely spared the wrecking ball.
It survived through neglect, which means today it is one of the only places in central Paris where you can actually walk through the pre-revolution medieval street grid.
It's like stepping back in time.
The streets are incredibly narrow, winding, and completely devoid of that grand Haussmann symmetry.
It creates an intensely intimate urban scale. But the Marais is not frozen in amber. Its architectural preservation sits in violent contrast to some of the most radical modern interventions in the city.
Yes.
You see this collision perfectly at the center, Georges Pompidou.
The Pompidou Center is a shock to the system. You're walking past these 17th century stone mansions, you turn a corner, and suddenly you are facing a massive 6-story structure of glass, exposed steel beams, and brightly colored industrial pipes.
It's jarring for a lot of people.
It is. The architects, Renzo Piano and Richard Rogers, took all the internal mechanics of a building, the plumbing, the electrical, the escalators, and put them on the outside.
It was wildly controversial when it opened in 1977, but it serves as a massive cultural anchor now, and directly adjacent to it is Place Stravinsky, a shallow reflecting pool populated by 16 kinetic, wildly playful, brightly colored sculptures by artists Jean Tinguely and Niki de Saint-Phal.
They are so fun.
They spin, they spit water, they rotate, creating an environment of modern mechanical joy right next to the Gothic church of Saint-Marie.
This juxtaposition really defines the Marais. And as you push deeper into the neighborhood, the demographic history reveals itself. Because the Marais was historically a neglected area with cheap rents, it became a sanctuary.
Yeah, exactly.
In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it became the heart of the Jewish diaspora in Paris, an area known as the Pletzel.
And the spine of this historic community is Rue des Rosiers. Despite heavy modern gentrification all around it, the street retains its profound historical identity, anchored by bakeries, bookshops, and its evolution into a dominant culinary destination.
Specifically the street food culture. I mean, Rue des Rosiers is synonymous with LA's du Falafel.
Oh, it's an absolute institution.
You don't even need to look for a sign. You simply look for the massive queue of people spilling out onto the cobblestones. They serve incredibly dense, vibrant falafel sandwiches packed with roasted eggplant, pickled cabbage, and hummus, all served right through a takeout window.
It is the perfect distillation of the Marais' history. Authentic, working-class, immigrant culinary traditions, elevated to iconic status within a now highly affluent district.
Right.
And directly feeding into this modern affluence is the vibrant LGBTQ+ community, which found a safe haven in the Marais decades ago when it was still relatively ungentrified.
And the intersection of Rue Saint-Croix de la Bretonnerie is the pulsing heart of this community. It's loud, it's proud, and it is arguably the best shopping street in the district.
Easily.
It's also where you find culinary perfection in the form of Pierre Hermé.
Ah, Pierre Hermé. While traditional patisseries are everywhere, Pierre Hermé represents the avant-garde of French pastry, specifically the macaron.
It's next level.
He approaches flavors with the precision of a perfumer.
You aren't just buying vanilla or chocolate. You are buying a macaron flavored with white truffle and hazelnut, or an olive oil and mandarin orange creation. It is high-end culinary engineering.
It's an experience.
You grab a box of those, and if you want a truly historic, chaotic dining experience, you navigate north toward Rue de Bretagne to find the Marché des Enfants Rouges.
This is the oldest covered market in Paris, established in 1615 to supply a nearby orphanage.
1615.
Yes, and today it operates less as a traditional grocery market and more as a dense international food hall.
It is a glorious, authentic dive. You walk through these old wooden arches into a maze of food stalls. It is loud, smoke is rising from massive grills, and you are sitting shoulder to shoulder on wooden benches with locals on their lunch break.
It's wonderfully chaotic.
You could order authentic Moroccan tagine, Japanese bento, or traditional French regional cooking, all happening simultaneously in this tight covered space.
And when the sensory overload of the Marais peaks, the neighborhood offers the perfect architectural release valve. You purchase your falafel, or your macarons, and you walk to the eastern edge of the district, to the Place des Vosges.
Place des Vosges is arguably the most beautiful square in Paris. It was built by King Henri IV in the early 1600s. It is a perfect enclosed square of symmetrical red brick pavilions with steep slate roofs sitting above vaulted stone arcades.
It's mathematically perfect.
In the center is a manicured park with fountains. You walk through an archway, the noise of the city abruptly cuts out, and you just sit on the grass.
It is the ultimate manifestation of flânerie, the Parisian art of strolling and observing. You sit in the architectural perfection of the 17th century, eating modern street food, completely insulated from the kinetic energy of the modern city outside the brick walls.
It's a perfect moment.
Yeah.
But to understand the engine that actually generated the ideas that shaped French culture, we have to physically cross the Seine.
Right, crocking over.
We are leaving the commercial and royal history of the right bank, and we're stepping onto the left bank, the Rive Gauche. We're entering the Quartier Latin and Saint-Germain-des-Prés.
This area is the absolute intellectual and academic foundation of the nation. It is called the Latin Quarter because, for centuries after the founding of the Sorbonne University in the 13th century, Latin was the exclusive language spoken by the students and professors living in these streets.
It was an enclave of academia.
And its history goes back even further, right down to the Roman bedrock. Before it was Paris, it was the Roman city of Lutetia. If you walk down Rue Mouffetard today, you are walking on the exact alignment of an ancient Roman road that led to Italy.
Which is mind-blowing. And Rue Mouffetard demonstrates the historical stratification of the area perfectly.
It really does.
The street slopes downward from the Pantheon. The upper half is historically significant, but has, unfortunately, succumbed to high-volume tourist commercialization. The restaurants there utilize aggressive barkers, trying to pull you in for mediocre, overpriced set menus.
Yeah, you want to avoid those. But if you push past the tourist traps and walk down the hill, the bottom half of Rue Mouffetard reveals a brilliant, authentic, daily street market.
It's fantastic.
The cheese shops, the butchers, the greengrocers spilling their produce onto the pavement. It's where the actual residents of the left bank shop for dinner.
Just off that bustling market street, the neighborhood conceals pockets of intense intellectual tranquility. A perfect example is the Place de l'Estrapade.
Oh, I love that square.
Place de l'Estrapade is exactly what you picture when you read Hemingway or Fitzgerald talking about Paris in the 1920s. It's a quiet, leafy, triangular square bordered by classic Haussmann buildings and small cafes. It feels entirely disconnected from the tourist masses.
The micromechanics of this specific square are wonderful. On one side, you have the Café Nouvelle Marie. On the exact opposite side of the street, you have the modern bakery, renowned for producing exceptional traditional baguettes.
The move here is to go to the bakery, buy a fresh, still warm baguette, walk across the street, take a seat on the terrace at Nouvelle Marie, order a glass of Bordeaux, and simply exist in that space.
Yes.
Is the realization of the Parisian ideal, but accessed through specific geographical knowledge.
And sitting in that square, you are literally in the shadow of the monumental architecture of French reason. Just up the street is the Pantheon.
The Pantheon has the most fascinating identity crisis of any building in Paris. King Louis XV originally commissioned it as a massive neoclassical church dedicated to Saint Genevieve.
Right.
But by the time it was finished, The French Revolution had happened.
The revolutionaries had violently rejected the monarchy and the Catholic Church. They took this massive, brand new cathedral and secularized it.
They just repurposed the whole thing.
They bricked up the massive windows to make it darker and more solemn, transforming it into a mausoleum for the great intellectual minds of the Republic. The heroes of the mine replaced the saints of the church.
You walk inside, and the scale of the dome is just staggering. You descend into the crypts, and you are walking past the physical remains of the people who shaped modern thought.
Voltaire is there.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Victor Hugo, Marie Curie. It is incredibly heavy.
And in the center of the vast nave above, hanging from the very top of the dome, is Foucault's pendulum.
Oh, the pendulum.
In 1851, the physicist Léon Foucault hung a massive brass bob from the ceiling and let it swing, physically demonstrating the rotation of the Earth to the public for the very first time. The building is a temple dedicated to science, literature, and the triumph of human reason.
To process all that heavy intellectual history, you need to decompress. And the left bank offers the greatest decompression chamber in the city, the Jardin du Luxembourg.
The Luxembourg Gardens were created in 1612 by Queen Marie de' Medici. She was Italian, deeply homesick for Florence, and she bought the land to build a palace and gardens that reminded her of the Pitti Palace from her youth.
Today, it is the quintessential Parisian park. It isn't wild nature, it is highly manicured, geometric perfection. Gravel paths crunching under your feet, perfectly aligned chestnut trees, and dozens of those iconic, heavy, sage-green metal chairs scattered around the central basin where children push vintage wooden sailboats with sticks.
And tucked away under a canopy of massive plane trees is the Medici Fountain. It's a long, shaded, reflecting pool lined with ivy-draped urns, culminating in a dramatic mythological sculpture.
It's beautiful.
It is remarkably serene, insulated entirely from the traffic of the Boulevard Saint-Michel just outside the gates.
It's the perfect place to sit and plan your evening, because when the sun goes down in the Latin Quarter, you are in the heart of bistro country.
Bistro country.
The bistro is an essential Parisian institution. It originated as a place for simple, robust, fast food for the working class.
The etymology is debated, but a popular theory traces the word bistro to the Russian occupation of Paris in 1814, when soldiers would demand their food bistro, meaning quickly.
Interesting.
Over centuries, it evolved into a cornerstone of French culinary culture, offering fixed-price menus, the prix-fixe, focused on traditional, unpretentious cooking.
And while the Latin Quarter has a lot of overpriced, low-quality tourist bistros, there's an absolute gem located on Rue Jussieu, Le Buisson Ardent.
Number 25, Rue Jussieu. It operates with a deep respect for the traditional bistro mechanics.
You walk in, and it feels authentic. Wood paneling, red banquettes, mirrors. They aren't trying to be avant-garde. They offer a fixed menu for roughly 30 to 33 euros, which gives you an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert.
That's a great deal.
This is incredible value for high-quality, made-from-scratch French food in this specific geographic zone.
The beverage logistics here are equally important. You do not need to order a highly expensive vintage bottle of wine.
Yeah.
The tradition in a good bistro is to order the house wine, the vin de paix. At Le Buisson Ardent, you can order a half-liter pitcher of their house Côte de Rhône for around 18 euros. It is highly drinkable, robust, and perfectly complements the heavy, rich food.
They also have a wonderful cork. They offer a glass of premium Roeder champagne for just 10 euros to start your meal. You order the champagne, you eat the prefix, you drink the house wine, and you are participating in a culinary rhythm that the locals have utilized for generations.
It perfectly encapsulates the mission of our discussion. You aren't just eating. You are utilizing the correct local mechanism to achieve the highest quality experience with the least amount of friction.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today on this deep dive. We've decoded the RER B, we've mastered the metro terminus logic, we've slipped through the hidden doors of the Louvre, and we've mapped the historical DNA of Montmartre, the Marais, and the Latin Quarter.
We really have.
We've given you the mechanical blueprint of the city. But I want to hand it over for a final thought. We've talked so much about logistics and infrastructure. How does mastering this actually change our philosophical relationship with the city?
It allows you to become a true flaneur.
A flaneur.
In the 19th century, the poet Charles Baudelaire defined the flaneur as the ultimate urban explorer, a person who strolls the city streets, keenly observing society, architecture, and history, detached but deeply engaged.
Okay.
But here is the critical reality. You cannot be a flaneur if your cognitive load is entirely consumed by the friction of survival.
That makes total sense.
If you are terrified of the ticket machine, if you are lost in the metro tunnels, if you are exhausted from standing in the sun at Versailles, your brain is in a state of stress. You are fighting the city, not observing it.
Right.
By mastering the logistics we discussed today, by understanding the invisible rules, the underground routes, the historical flow of the streets, you eliminate that friction. You reclaim your cognitive space.
Yeah.
And in that space, you stop being a tourist managing a crisis, and you become a participant in the profound, continuous history of Paris.
That is the ultimate goal. You master the grit so you can actually experience the magic. The cinematic dream of Paris isn't a lie, but it isn't handed to you either. It is a reward for understanding how the city works. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Put on your most comfortable shoes, grab that umbrella, and step confidently into the maze. The city is yours to unlock.